Hey YouTube, it's me, Brandon Curl again. The next knife review is basically just updating you on the Kershaw Junkyard 2 in limited edition tungsten DLC coating, and also with the CPM D2 steel instead of the standard D2 that the knife comes with. Now I'm going to try to keep this a little bit shorter because I'm going to be taking the video on my phone, just seeing if it holds up a little bit better, because I think on my last computer it just wasn't coming across as well. But I know that it cuts me off sooner than I usually like to, so I'm going to try to keep this a little bit more brief. So, if you remember in my last video for the unboxing of this knife, the knife wasn't quite as smooth, and it took a little bit for it to actually get open. You could still get it open without any kind of wrist flick or anything like that, but it was a little sluggish. Not anymore. This is phenomenal right now. But it's also now the new smoothest knife that I own. This knife is on bearings, and this isn't quite as smooth. It may be able to fall down in place, but that is solely because of the bearings. There's a bit of a grittiness to this knife that just doesn't make it quite smooth. Now, don't get me wrong, it's still very smooth, but you can feel just a bit of a grittiness to it that I just don't like. There is no such problem with this. This is as smooth as you can possibly get, and there's no stop and go nature to it whatsoever. Like, just to give you a bit of an example of what I mean, here's a Kershaw Skyline. Also on bearings, also by Kershaw. Also pretty high end. See if you can you see how it just has a bit of a stop and go hesitation there? It's just not completely fluid, and it wants to grab in certain areas. Even this knife, which is even smoother, has just a bit of a stop and go nature to it. This knife, no such problems. There is no hesitation. It comes open, it falls closed. And if you actually completely release the lock bar, let me get it like this because that kind of hurts my thumb coming down. If you release the lock bar, that rides completely free. And it's because the fossil bronze washers are just that smooth. Now, let me do the same thing with this knife. It has a little bit more of a liability to catch. Now, if you only put it up so much, then yeah. But really, it's just not as smooth. So, I'll leave it at that. This really smooth knife, love it, pick one up. Continuing on. The CPM D2 on here, for whatever reason, it just doesn't seem to like taking the same high polish that this knife does. There's a couple of knives in my collection that really do enjoy taking almost a mirror polish, even at a 2000 grit stone. This is one of them. But for whatever reason, the Junkyard dog just doesn't seem to want to do it. Now, I don't know why. Maybe I just haven't put enough time with it. Maybe this is a trickier steel to do it with. But the second that my next amount of money comes in, which I should be expecting about $150 sometime soon, when that comes in, then I'm going to be putting out some money to get an $8,000 an 8,000 grit Ninwa stone, which is basically a Japanese water stone. I think Ninwa is the brand, but I plan on using that for some of my higher end knives, such as this, or some of my babies, such as this. But But yeah, so maybe that'll help it out a bit, because like I said, maybe I just haven't put enough time with the 2000 grit. But no matter what, right now it's just not seeming to accept that really high glossy finish that I typically prefer on all of my knives. But I just can't get over that opening. That is really buttery smooth. And it's now one of the fastest knives that I have because of just how smooth it is. But also, just the ease of the flipper. It's astounding. I mean, it takes no force whatsoever, and it just wants to rock it out. I mean, you really don't even have to touch the back of the blade because a lot of people like push buttoning it. This actually doesn't want to be push buttoned. If, in fact, you try, and it's actually a little bit harder, it wants you to light switch it. Which, for those of you that really don't know what the difference is, which I take it generally most of you know what it is, but push buttoning is when you're pushing in really hard. The Skyline prefers being push buttoned as to being light switched. Push button, again, it's kind of like a down in the in motion. This one rockets out when you push button it. When you light switch it, it does come out. This one also prefers to be light switched, pulled back. Basically, when you pull down and not push in, it comes out a lot better. Honestly, I really don't even have to even touch the scale at all, and it just rockets out. Now, if you push it in just a little, if you push it in a touch, it does help it to go out a little bit quicker, but really it doesn't want to be push buttoned at all. It actually is counterintuitive to an extent, but it really does work. So, but yeah, that's just really smooth. The jimping on here, I'll be honest, it's not the best, but it really is effective. The harder my callus on my thumb seems to get, the less the jimping on here seems to work. But it is truly effective. And I take it most of you won't really have all that big of a callus on your thumb. Because really, I only got it for 2 knives in my collection that I have ever had. And both of them are right here. ZT0561, Kershaw Emerson CQC 7K. Now I got it on this one solely because of the lock bar cutouts. These are so aggressive, and I was disengaging my knife all the time, but I was also playing with the thumb studs. And these are really, really hard thumb studs. And the way that it works, it breaks your thumb. But so I got a really hard callus for that, but I also got a callus on this one mainly because of the thumb disc. But also disengaging that lock bar didn't exactly help, but yeah, it was mainly that thumb disc. I really don't prefer thumb discs. I really do prefer flippers or thumb studs, but the thumb disc on here really works, but you have to acclimate your thumb to it. But the flipper on this is just so easy that, sure, I do like playing around with thumb studs, but I really don't miss them. But as far as what these 2 knives did to my thumb, it puts a really hard callus on it. So therefore, the jimping here doesn't work quite as well. Really, it kind of takes the thumb ramp on here, and I think the Spyderco jimping still works for me. Yeah, the Spyderco jimping still works for me, but then again, that's a little bit deeper and sharper. Whereas this, it's about the same sharpness, but it's not quite as deep. So that's a good equivalent for the jimping. See, on my other thumb, it grabs very well, but I don't have pretty much any callus whatsoever on my thumb for this one. But yeah, so really if you have a Callus, it's not going to want to work for you all that well. The edge, if you remember me talking about that on the unboxing video, it wasn't the best Kershaw edge that I've ever seen. In fact, it was actually fairly dull compared to what Kershaw usually puts out as far as their factory sharpened edges. Now, I'm going to get a piece of paper from my old college pre-algebra textbook. I hate this thing. I want to see it die, so I'm tearing it out paper by paper. That was interesting. Apparently, it folded over, and one slash got that. So, that was actually kind of cool. Never seen that happen before. But yeah, as you can see, just absolutely razor sharp. Which, I've got my fan going on above me, so really it didn't stop because there's like a nick in the blade or anything like that. It stopped because the paper folded over because of the fan going down. And also this is incredibly thin paper, like just wafer thin. So, slightest little deviation and it bends over everything. But yeah, this is incredibly sharp. One of the sharpest knives I own after I actually put it over my stones. But yeah, so the CPM D2 is holding up very well. But like I said, it just doesn't want to take that true polish. But hopefully that 8,000 grit Ninois stone that I'll be getting when I get in my money will help take care of that, and we'll put a true mirror polish on it. Really, even when I'm hard using this, there's really no, there's not really any hot spots. The place right here that I thought would be a hot spot really didn't turn out to be all that much of one at all. It's slightly uncomfortable, but that's really about it. It didn't end up being a hot spot for much of anything. The only true complaint that I would have at all about this knife is the orientation of the pocket clip. I would prefer it to be tip-up carry. But, for whatever reason, they didn't do it, and it's tip-down only. You can't even switch it over for left-handers, so that way they can have a left-handed oriented knife. But, yeah, so tip-down right-hand carry is the only option for this knife. So, sorry lefties out there, left-handers. You're kind of screwed on this one unless you want to keep it in your right pocket or basically just carry it backwards. So, unless you do that, kind of screwed. Sorry. But yeah, I would like to see this in a tip-up carry, but, nah. This is a limited run, not exactly going to see that. But, maybe I'll see if one of my friends can tap me a couple of holes for this side, so that way I can switch it myself. Because, limited edition or not, for me, this isn't going to raise in value, it's not going to lower in value, because I'm never going to sell this. In my entire history of owning knives, I think that I've sold one, maybe two knives in my entire collection. I've given 2, maybe 3 away as gifts, and I've thrown away 3 or 4. Not many knives have actually left my possession once they got into my collection. So honestly, tapping an extra couple of holes in here, people may think that it loses value. I say screw it, I'm never getting rid of it, so who cares? Basically, if I buy a knife, it's going in my collection for good. But yeah, so honestly, I really don't care. Something I forgot to mention, that there's actually a fair amount of jimping on just on the, lose my words, on the flipper tab here. And it really gets a good purchase on your finger, and it really allows you to just get a good purchase on it, so that way you can really use that flipper tab to the fullest extent, which is probably why it works so well with light switching it. Excuse me. Yeah, my soda's coming back up. But yeah, so that's probably why it works so well with light switching it, is because the jimping gets such a good purchase that all of the energy from your finger now gets transferred to the blade and just comes screaming out. So this really just likes to rock it open. Now, this is probably something I probably should have gotten to in the beginning, because this is what most of you care about. But even though technically you can get it from just about any website on earth, the handle is 4 3/4 inches long, with G10 scales, liner lock, as you can probably tell just from me holding this thing. The blade is technically 3 5/8 inches long, or it's pretty much a 5.5 inch overall dimension blade. But honestly, you could carry this as a 3 1/4 inch blade. Reason being is it's actually only got a 3 1/4 inch blade as far as cutting edge. Cutting edge is only 3 1/4 inches. There's an extra 1/4 of an inch right here of just unused space. And pretty much every cop that I've ever seen, I've actually talked to a couple of them, seeing what they do whenever they're measuring blades to see if they're within legal standards. Basically, most of them measure cutting edge only. I have seen 1 or 2 that does measure overall blade length. If it's attached to the edge, they're going to count it. So yes, be aware of that. So this does have overall dimensions of 3 5/8 inches, which is just a little bit over 3.5. But as far as actual blade length, like just for cutting edge, this is only a 3 1/4 inch blade. It is pretty much a modified sheep's foot. Because to my knowledge, the sheep's foot blade is actually supposed to have a flat edge, like completely flat. This has a very good amount of belly, which I do massively prefer over a straight edge. Because if I was going for a straight edge, let me get this one for a second. If I was going for a straight edge, I'd go for a Tanto like this, which the actual review on this is going to be coming sometime within the next week or so. Just depends on when I have time. But yeah, so expect to see a review on this one soon. But yeah, so I really do like the overall geometry of this. Let's see, is there anything I missed? Just in case anybody was wondering, as far as which serial number I got serial number 287. And now, I've actually been trying to find out just how many of these they actually made. So if anybody can tell me, love to know, because I would actually like to know just how limited this actually was. So, that's really all that I got for you guys. If you guys think that I missed anything about it, let me know, because I'm trying to see what I can do to improve the channel. So, let me know what you guys think about what I've done so far. Tell me if there's anything that I can improve on. And as always, stay safe.